Okay, this is going to be rather candid because I've been sick for the best part of the last week with some nasty bugs eating my respiratory system, so this is just going to be a little more candid than most. And if you stick it through to the end of this video, behind me there's basically a year's worth of spoilers. So the final goal here is to get back to the why do people laugh at creationists and the science and education stuff. But I'm not done with the feminism yet, because a load of this stuff is just batshit crazy and someone just needs to call it on its bullshit. So for instance, Rebecca Watson, the skeptic here, who has for years now been going around these atheist conferences telling people of how completely ridden the atheist community is with sexism and harassment for women.
Within the last 2 years, I started tentatively mentioning the kind of harassment I was receiving online, and the result of that was 1,000 times more harassment.
And then when someone finally gets around to saying, hang on, where's the evidence for all of this? She comes out with this pathetic handful of troll comments. That's it. That's her proof for there being this huge body of sexism and harassment against women. Bollocks! Look, someone's just got to state the bloody obvious here. The Empress has no clothes on. She gets no more harassment above and beyond what anyone else who says stupid shit in public gets. Indeed, I go so far to say that people like Watson here, with their professional victimhood, are actually doing a disservice to women's rights by virtue of the fact that their embrace victimhood methodology is simply undermining the credibility of real victims.
So you decided to say you were a victim. You are the worst kind of victim. It is women like you who ruin it for real victims of domestic violence. My verdict is for the plaintiff.
Now, I'm all for avoiding civil wars at all costs, because they're always the ones that kill more of your guys than anyone else's. However, this toxic asset's now got to the point where it really does have to be addressed, for the simple reason that until recently, the atheist community had this reputation of having these big hitters at its core. And now it's losing that, and it's getting a reputation for having professional whiners and victims at its core. So this is the sort of fruits that this new wave of atheism is yielding. This is a harassment policy from one of the latest skeptical conferences called Skeptech. We do not tolerate harassment of conference participants in any form. Sexual language and imagery are not appropriate at any conference venue, including talks. I'm just going to read that again. Sexual language.
I would have to submit and have sex with you. No, take the cards with you. I got to call you back for the sex part later, so hang on to those.
And imagery is not appropriate at any conference venue, including talks. Even though two of their invited speakers are Sexy Heathen and the Wiener Works. And then of course these professional policy writers top that all up with the ultimate sanction that conference participants violating these rules may be sanctioned or expelled from the conference without a refund at the discretion of the conference organisers. And that's such a devastating sanction that it's repeated twice. If a participant engages in harassing behaviour, the conference organisers may take any action they deem appropriate, including warning the offender or expulsion from the conference with no refund, which of course would be a devastating sanction if it weren't for the fact that the conference was free. I mean, come on, if the refund is zero, why not really let yourself go and just give them a full refund? Now, this is just the sort of incompetence you can expect when you have PC whiners rather than big hitters calling the shots on how conferences should be run. And for those who want to misrepresent my position as, but you don't believe in any harassment policies, bollocks. I believe in treating all people as responsible adults. And I've got to admit, I've found it kind of amusing that there have been all these people who have been very happy to sit on the fence for the best part of the last 2 years. They were happy to sit on the fence while these feminists were going around with their professional victimhood antics, throwing mud and slime at virtually everyone else in the secular community.
And all that was before, as Ellen Beth referenced, one of my heroes, Professor Richard Dawkins, publicly mocked me, suggesting that I have no right to to ask the men of our community to respect women.
They were happy to sit on the fence whilst Richard Carrier was coming out with his, you're either with us or against us, you're either for atheism plus or you're going to stick with atheism less. And they were happy to sit on the fence and do nothing and say nothing. And then, the second that I say something, they burst forward in this gushing of selective outrage that I'm having ignored all this bullshit for the last 2 years, I'm the boogeyman for bringing it to their attention.
Atheism Plus at this point is basically a forum and a concept. It's just a concept that you should be, in our viewpoint, atheists plus more when it comes to civil rights and equality. I know for sure I don't want to march next to someone at an atheist separation of church and state rally who also wants to vote to take rights away from gays. That doesn't make sense to me. That's the concept of Atheism Plus.
Oh, I think you can whittle it down a lot more than that. I mean, wouldn't you feel uncomfortable when we march next to someone who actually believed in stricter gun control? Or maybe for less gun control? Or how about pro-choice or pro-life?
Our campaign bumper sticker, if babies had guns, they wouldn't be aborted.
Or how about Republican or Libertarian? Or how about pro-war or tree hugger? I mean, why not just make this entire church-state march about you and people who think exactly like you?
I know for sure I don't want to march next to someone at an atheist separation of church and state rally who all...
Look, let's make this simple. If you're in a march for church-state separation, all of the deeply religious who understand the reason for church-state separation and support it are your allies. And if you're willing to throw all of them under the bus, not only all of those, but all of the atheists who don't subscribe to your very narrow range of social values under the bus, you're a moron.
That's the concept of Atheism Plus, and that I can support.
And then you get the self-appointed intellectual artillery of Atheism Plus firing blanks back at, curiously enough, me with his latest article.
But here's what I do know. Richard Carrier is one of the greatest minds in this movement.
So let's just see what one of the greatest minds of the atheism movement has to say about me, shall we? The article is entitled, Is Thunderfoot a Sociopath? With such great subtitles as Thunderfoot Against Having a Moral Conscience, Thunderfoot Against Privacy Rights, Thunderfoot Against Women, Thunderfoot Against Being Reasonable, Thunderfoot Against Women and Empathy. I think I'm spotting the pattern here. Thunderfoot Against Critical Thinking, Thunderfoot Against Minorities, and Thunderfoot Against any kind of methodology, honesty, or common sense whatsoever. The conclusions of which I'm going to read because they are just hilarious. Thunderfoot is effectively, and in some cases explicitly, arguing that atheists should be less compassionate, less caring of their fellow human beings, and especially less caring of their fellow atheists, their co-workers. He even singles out women and minorities as those who you should especially care nothing about. The perverse, sociopathic amorality of this man, and evidently his acolytes who upvote this amoral disrespect of others and their rights and concerns and happiness, is disturbing to me. And then, just to make it clear, he tells you what you should think as well. It should be disturbing to you. He rejects the very concept of a right to privacy. He even rejects our moral right to condemn and stop listening to harassing and abusive speech, and he even says we deserve it. At no point in his video does he show a single instance of actual human empathy for another human being. Instead, from beginning to end, all we get is a complete lack of concern, compassion, or camaraderie with others, women and minority atheists especially. Compare his call for atheists to be less compassionate, less caring, less concerned, in fact, wholly unconcerned for others, with my call for the reverse. Ask yourself Whose vision of the future of atheism do you want to realise? Those are the battle lines he has drawn. Scary, but true. You decide, watch my video, compare it to his, and upvote the one you think is actually doing something good for the atheist movement. And not only that, but PZ Myers, that's a mainstay of free thought blogs, also wrote a couple of articles supporting Carrier. And what is the result of this call to arms? Well, currently my video has about 5,500 votes with an approval rating of about 94%. Whereas Carrier's video has about 2,000 votes with an approval rating of 28%. Let me just read this again. You decide, watch my video, compare it to his, and vote up the one you think is actually doing something good for the atheist movement. And seeing as Carrier is clear that he wants to settle this one by popular vote, I can only suggest that you go to his video and make sure that your vote, one way or the other, is counted. So yeah, I've got more to say on the feminism, but mostly that can wait for another day. I'll limit myself to saying a couple of things. First of all, at the moment, the professional victimhood is a far bigger poison, a toxin to the atheist community than is the sexism. And secondly, that really we want our community to have a reputation for having big hitters at its core, not professional whiners. Right, so on to the spoilers. What have we got? Well, firstly I've got my infrared thermometer, which actually has a little laser on. There we go, little laser. And it's also got green laser on top of that, which is kind of cool. So you can measure your temperature. I have my little ultrasonic bath, with which I initially got it for seeing whether it would actually make sodium explode, and the answer is this one, no. But there's loads of other interesting stuff you can do with an ultrasonic bath as well, so I'll come back to this sometime as well. This boy here is my infrared light, which I've already done some experiments with to show the concept of whether soot settling out from forest fires on the Greenland ice sheet is potentially a contributing factor to them melting quicker. And you can see one of the preliminary experiments I've done on that over on the Thunderf00t channel. It looks like just a regular Newton ball race, I know, but you can do all sorts of really funky things with this, which you've probably never seen. So this is a soda stream, which can vent out carbon dioxide. And one of the reasons I've got the carbon dioxide is I want to do one of these really simple experiments on global warming, for which I have my space blanket from the Smithsonian thermometer that you can see in the infrared, of course, and you just need some jiggery pokery after that for a nice little demonstration of the concept of global warming. It might look like a little baby lightsaber, but it's not got quite as much punch in it. This one's going to be the mystery. I've already used this, as it turns out, but can someone tell me what on earth that is used for? So it's a bottle with 2 spoons in it. Balls with baby balls, which can almost be used to show why sodium is solid, potassium is solid, but sodium-potassium alloy is a liquid. So I've also got a couple of these now. These are little time-lapse cameras that you can buy for about 150 bucks. And I've got 2 of them, so you can actually do 2 angles on the time-lapse. They're not great. They're a fairly narrow angle. They really do need something that's much wider angle. They're not fantastic either, but at about 150 bucks a shot, you can get a couple of these and do some maybe interesting stuff. And they're certainly a lot cheaper. This is the guy that I use for doing the whole sky time lapse. The camera and the lens together is about 2,000 bucks, so these aren't cheap. But the great thing is, with a 180 fisheye like this, is that fisheye can from here both see, can I take a picture? This might work. That should have actually taken a picture of both you and me. Wow. In the background here, we have, of course, have the drinking bird. I want to do one of these complete working things from a molecular to a macroscopic level of a drinking bird. Because drinking birds are bloody complicated, and they're fantastic little vehicles for explaining some really quite funky science. So obviously we have a slinky, another little Newtonian magic thing, and then we have some more stuff from the Smithsonian. Like, did you know that the Smithsonian now sells neutronium? And also you can get these great little prisms, which are kind of cool. If I put my green laser through that prism there, what you'll find is that it's monochromatic. You can never split up this green light. So riddle me this. If it's green light, and it can only ever be green light, why, when it goes into olive oil, does it turn to red light? And why, when it reflects and comes back again, does it turn back to being green light?